We're here in San Diego at Daybreak Games Company.
Our candid sit-down interview with Holly Longdale, the executive producer of the EverQuest franchise, is here.
She may cut this interview short.
Just listen to me. Just listen to us.
How long is this game going to be around?
The full interview is next on the EverQuest Show.
Celebrate life and get excited about good times and good living. Come on, shout it out. Hey, take it up, take it over, take it out of control. Today I'm freeing my soul and now you got me singing. Oh, hey, oh, I'm feeling fine, smiling big, feeling right like I should. Life is better than good. Yeah, you got me singing.
The EverQuest franchise has had plenty of ups, but also plenty of downs. And there are so many questions about the future of the games. But if there is one person who knows what's coming for EQ, it's the executive producer of the franchise, Holly Longdale. First of all, thank you.
It's great to see you.
Obviously, just being in this room, I'm kind of geeking out a little bit. But what is it like to be a steward for a game that it's got 20 years of development and it means so much to so many people, and you're in charge of it? What is that like?
It's trippy. I try not to think about it too much. You always try and remember, there's of course the pressure of it's a business, right? Not all game development teams are sort of a bottom-up organization where the team sort of elevates their concerns or their choices or where they think is the best place to go for the business. And that comes from my time as being a designer, where you're just listen to me, just listen to us. We have great ideas. We know what the players want. There's some hubris in that, but quite often they're right.
Holly began the same way most of us did, as a player, fascinated with fantasy and role-playing.
I loved Drizzt and when I first played, I was a dark elf, and we didn't talk to other races, and we would say Vendui to each other, and all this kind of crazy RP stuff. And then I went out into the world, and then I found Aviac Village somehow in North Carolina, and then this human ranger tried to group with me. I'm like, no, I don't group with humans. And that's when I learned that this is a big community. You have to you can't just work within the Dark Elves, you've got to branch out.
Holly was working for Microsoft as a writer at the time when one of her guildmates, who happened to be an EverQuest developer, convinced her to apply for a dev job on EQ. She did and began her games developing career, working on EverQuest. After departing some years later to work for Disney, she returned later to work on EverQuest II as the senior producer. In 2015, with Daybreak now at the helm, she became the executive producer of both games. She credits her past experience as a player and designer for understanding the needs of the game.
What you learn is coming up that way, especially on such an important franchise, is that you trust the team and you trust the players. And so we're constantly evaluating the players' thoughts and input. And we often go into game, not that forums aren't a great place for information, but we want to be talking to the players who are invested in playing every day. And we want to look at quality of life and where should we take the products and for both games. But the devs know what they're doing, and their majority of them, with the exception of maybe two, were players starting in 1999 and onward.
So this group that's working on the game, they love the game.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know you're going to be talking to some of them, but you're going to see their passion come through. We're just a really unique group, very passionate. We love EverQuest. Everything we do is about securing its future.
And I did have a chance to meet with those developers in panel interviews and one-on-ones. There's a lot of amazing, great information. I couldn't put it in this episode, so make sure you click subscribe. I'll put those in future episodes that will contain these amazing folks. Here's a sneak peek.
We're here because we love EverQuest and we love being able to put out something that has affected so many people.
So you are the creator of the logo?
I'm the creator of the original logo, that's correct.
I had no time to animate a male character and a female character. So we're looking around, what can we do? Someone said, how about these frogs?
I put up with him, no.
Is this a problem? Check it, check this, check that. And then eventually, okay, 3 minutes before we unlocked.
The model's badass, it's really great. That's going in, I think, in this expansion, but I think I can say that.
So we were staying up till 4 in the morning, sleeping out in the parking lot.
Being at our fan fairs and seeing our players dress up as our characters, I almost broke down. It was the most touching thing I've ever seen.
I feel as a raid designer, if I don't know the classes, I'm not doing my job.
But of course, I really wanted some direct answers straight from Holly herself.
How are the games doing?
Fantastic. So we seem to be breaking all these rules. So normally when you're in a game that's, they call it aging or maturing, much like me. There's this notion that they fade over time and that you're basically in a maintenance mode is sort of a term that's thrown around a lot. But when I moved on to EverQuest and we became Daybreak, at that time we were a smaller team and we thought, what can we do? We love these games so much, we don't want to see them fade. And so I, as the new EP, listened to the teams and they said, on EverQuest, we really want progression.
And the current teams that are in place are getting results.
So since 2015, since I came on board, breaking all the rules, both games have grown. So where we had a trend of the audience trickling off, we've now grown and we've grown revenue at the same time. So we've actually, hired some people to fill out the teams because again, it's about delivering to the player. It is staggering that both these games are still, they're profitable ventures and incredible games. They're worlds with these amazing communities, and it's hard to restrain my passion around wanting to always do the right thing. That is always our motivator, is try and do the right thing, deliver on expectations, work within our means so that we are profitable and we can keep this business going so the gamers still have the game to play.
Holly credits progression along with a focus on nostalgic content as the reason for EverQuest's continued success.
You talked about growing revenue. The games have grown since 2015. What is it that you attribute the success?
I think it is, we're trying to be smart about the content we do. So obviously, nostalgia is really important to our players. Being able to revisit, places we visited, 15 years ago, 16, 20 years ago, and doing a different take on it. So there's a familiarity there. We don't want to go too far out to, I know we've been to the moon and back, but we don't want to go too much farther and too much crazier than that. So we want to go back into those themes and develop those stories.
And with that formula for success in mind, I ask, what's coming for the short term? It appears November could be a very big month for EverQuest.
So we're going to be launching more servers this year to celebrate the EverQuest II 15th anniversary, and EQ is going to support that, as well as EQ2 launching a server as well. And this is more about, okay, we did progression, that's good, and that's a solid audience, and it's its own audience. What about live? When was the last time we launched a live server in either game? Can't even remember. And there's also some additional announcements about sort of identifying our culture as a studio a little more firmly. And we'll probably be making a bunch of statements about sort of where I want the studio to go and where the team wants the studio to go, that we are gamers for gamers. Trying to get the message out, being a little bit more transparent and humble about what's actually going on. And I think for the most part, these teams are that. But we want to get back to being, we all had in the past personalities for good or bad. Like Absor, Alan Van Kouveren. He's been known as a crusty old man since he started 20 years ago.
But it fits him.
Right. But we want him to, that's who we are. We're, even here, there's some amount of, we're role players. They expect, I'm always, as you probably noticed, I can ramble.
Yeah. Not in a bad way, but like on the AMAs, I notice you want to talk more about things.
Because I'm so excited by the people we have.
Now, the details on exactly what that answer means is something that I'm assured will become clear very soon, but until the announcement is made, that's about all I could get. In the meantime, I still had plenty of questions about the state of the player base and the future of the games.
Ultimately, what makes EQ is the communities themselves. So every time we launch a new server, we've created sort of a brand new social ecosystem. And so we want to keep that alive. And a lot of our players move back and forth because everyone likes the fresh, hopeful, positive feeling of a new server. And then it settles in and they get to know each other and those personalities develop. And we get asked, quite often, can you come in and fix this social situation? And EverQuest has always thrived by a hands-off approach mostly. Like there was a time when we got involved in trying to help with raid rotation. on Rage. It was the terrible decision, but that was us. Like, we cared so much. Like, oh, people are unhappy. We should get involved. And that was when we weren't instancing raids.
Yeah.
So there's some things we learned not to do, and some things that seem to be helpful. Like, even when a community gets polarized, that is amongst them. And just like any social system. And I think that's what keeps it alive. It keeps people bonded. It keeps them united in a cause and coming into the game and playing. Obviously, new content. We want to keep the characters growing in unique ways. And we're going to try and get back onto our pace of every other year. There's a level increase and really meaningful stuff to do for your character, and meaningful power increases so you feel like you're advancing. But also new servers.
And with the progression servers, it's been a boon for the game, but also occasionally a divide.
How do you balance the TLP players with the live players? Because they seem to be two vastly different groups playing the same game.
Yeah, they are, but they're also almost equal to each other now in numbers. So we have to be very mindful of both, but it is, we're constantly, there's the conversation that starts with, what are we going to do next? And then it's, how do we address TLP players, and then how do we address our live players in both games? So even in EverQuest II, they wanted to try another PvP server, and that was a passion project that the team did mostly on their own time, because a couple of them really love PvP and they're like, I can do it in my spare time. And so we ended up with Nagafin, but also with their TLE server. That again is what we noticed, and we even found it ourselves because we play on progression.
I play on Caledon, yeah.
So that is, when you get a brand new audience who is fresh in the game, it creates its own community and its own feeling. And so we wanted to make sure we're addressing that. That is a completely different focus than live, where you're dealing with existing communities that have their own structures on servers. And so we need to make sure we're trying to service their needs.
I want to go back to something you said about having people that have so much passion that they say, oh, I want to do this in my spare time because this is something I want. Do you find that happens a lot?
Yeah, and it's troubling. I threaten to fire a lot of them. But, you know, 'cause I like, stop working, like just go home, take a break. And they don't. They will do it behind my back.
So what do you say to the and I know there's a lot of vitriol on the forums, but what do you say to the people that say you guys are destroying the game?
Right.
How do you counter that? And what do you do not only for yourself mentally, but also what would you say to them?
I would say I wish they could spend a week here just hanging out with us and just seeing the amount of time and dedication that every one of these people put into both of these games, because you know, the reality is a lot more complicated than probably what the customer and the player sees. And for us to get stuff done and make sure everything runs smoothly, even in the background when we're talking about, we have to make a decision about the game and what we're going to give to players, even if it is gameplay related, what they don't know is the cycles per second that we're consuming with these ginormous character files is something we battle constantly. So these are all these concerns that we don't really share. That are technical concerns, so they can still enjoy the experience, but then we can advance gameplay and do level increases, and that's bag storage. I can't even describe to you how huge the character files are, and every time, for like Jen Chan, our technical director, we're like, let's add another bag slot. She's, no!
Is that why my character takes so long to load on Tenaire?
Yeah,
no, I agree.
It's outrageous. So we've done a lot of work where we've converted a lot of stuff to databases, and every time we need to make those changes, we're putting a coder into a different space to work on the stability and the future of the game.
Despite the success of both games, time and human resources are always limited. They have to be prioritized.
And you see all these accolades, and you forget how big EverQuest has been over 20 years.
Is there a kind of NASA quality to it, better, faster, cheaper? Is that because you really do have to?
Well, and part of that is the brilliance of these teams over time is they've learned how to make content quickly and very efficiently. We've building tools over 15 and 20 years. That's very critical to your success, so that we can do content, like especially in EverQuest II, because that code base is a bit more modern and the systems are a bit more modern. They can make content so quickly, and they do.
Is it something where having EverQuest II and having EverQuest I together, it's more than the sum of its parts? In other words, you can create content for both because you have two?
Yes. Yeah, and there's a couple of people who are shared across both teams, like animators. So we do find efficiencies where we can, and that is also a credit to the team saying, like, let me do it. Let me get in there and do it. I can do both. You know, that's the kind of culture we have.
So I wanted to know the process for how those decisions are made.
So how do you balance the limited number of people that you have with what you want to get done in the game?
Those are team discussions. Obviously, I'm sort of the final word, and I try and use that sparingly. Usually the team comes to its own decision, but it is about player quality of life, longevity of the product. So I'm very lucky, hugely fortunate that on both teams, they're very savvy, business-minded people as well. They want to ensure the future of the game, so we need to make sure it's financially viable. We are free to play, so we need to make sure we're constantly evolving that notion. And what can we do where hopefully people want to give us their money? We don't want to feel like players feel like they have to, or that we always have our hand out. That is a delicate dance, and we try and get it right. We don't always get it right, but that is the reality of how do you create entertainment, make sure it sort of pays for itself and keeps us working. And you know, we always want to try and expand the team. There's a bunch of stuff we want to do better, and those are always on our minds. So we try and do a blend. We want to make sure the customers are happy first. Part of that too is that they have a good play experience, that the game works, doesn't crash very often. So I freely admit in the past year in EQ, we've had more crashes than in the past, and that's because one of our tools had broken. So we've been trying to play catch up on that and make sure that that is critical. If you can't get in and play when you want,
does the team take
failure.
that personally?
That's another thing that's really hard to express when people aren't in the building, when things don't go as planned, or even when we get something we thought players might like or that we have to do to improve the performance of the game, and they hate it. It's really sad times around here because this is our love and our passion, and we're players too. So, you know, we like to think of ourselves as gamers for gamers, and trying to balance that with it is a business. These guys occasionally have to have, you know, sleep and, you know, lives at times.
And donuts.
Yeah,
I brought donuts.
which is fantastic. We do survive on those a lot. So it is this delicate dance of the personal commitment to the product and the players, and trying to balance that with, actually, I can't even say, like, it's not a job.
Yeah.
This is absolutely not a job. I don't know what it's a passion. It's a life passion. A lot of us here have been here more than 10 years.
And in the gaming industry, as the head of a franchise, she is in a unique position.
This is an industry that's male dominated.
Yes.
It is. And you are, you know, at the top of this intellectual property. What is that like?
Crazy. I'm incredibly grateful. It's not lost on me how unique it is to be a woman in my position, but I have to be honest, I think I'm really fortunate. I've never felt disrespected because of my gender. All these people care about is, do you mostly know what you're doing? These people they're infinitely smarter than me. And I think being humble is part of it. I listen, and I try and I respect them all, and I love them all. They're like a little family. But I don't know how. I've been lucky, I guess. I'm surrounded by amazing people and always have been ever since I started. Even the people who hired me and mentored me to become a leader of a business. And yeah, I'm incredibly lucky, and I love them all.
And does that influence the direction of the game in any way?
So this year, in talking to the team, you know, when we're putting together things like the collector's edition pack, like what do we think people really want?
Yeah.
And you know, and I looked at it, I'm like, there isn't a single cute thing on here. Like, guys, stop doing ugly. Like, give us something delightful and fantasy and cute, because beauty in fantasy is something, there has to be a balance. It's a relief from like all the creepy stuff you have to kill. What's the payoff? You have to have the pretty and the relief from it. So you may see a bit of a better balance in the future. And I feel like it might be a bit of my feminine sensitivity that I bring to the team. It's like, I'm a girl nerd. I love fantasy fun, beautiful stuff. Whereas these guys are like, make it gross with one eye missing and flesh hanging off it. And blah,
So it's like little brother versus little sister,
yes,
what they want.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
As my interview with Holly winds down, there were still 2 big questions that I had yet to ask.
So I know we've got your public relations person over to the side here. So I'm going to ask
like,
a question where she may cut this interview short. But a lot of people have asked, what are you guys going to do with the intellectual property?
Oh, yeah.
So is there another game in development?
I can't talk about what's in development, but I promise you there's a future for EverQuest. I promise you. There's a lot of work has gone into evaluating our past. We're in a really unique position that we have up to more than 20 years of data on players and what they like in MMOs and the MMOs that we've made. Why wouldn't we take advantage of that when we craft something new for EverQuest?
That was a brilliant answer, and I'm jumping out of my seat right now, and I'm sure she is too.
She's like, shut up.
Okay, so that's all I could get about a future game, but what about the current games?
Final question I'll ask you. How long is this game going to be around?
At least another 10 years.
You think so?
Absolutely. You can't, so we're in this era of nostalgia, and people who haven't played the game for 10, 15 years have come back to try it. So progression is a good answer for that, and we're going to keep looking for other answers to that as well. And we're just going to, these teams are great at experimenting. We talk to the community, what do they want? And so we just keep exploring that, and we'll keep doing that until we can't anymore.
Well, as a fan, I'm excited, and I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So happy to have you here, and thanks
you.
for being a fan. We love everybody.
A very special, sincere thank you to Holly and the Daybreak and EverQuest teams that really went the extra mile for us, and especially their PR folks who really wanted to accommodate us and wanted to talk about these games. Now, there is so much more that's coming in the next episodes.
Well, I got out of prison. No, I've not been.
That's a bad word.
It was crashing the whole zone and everybody who was connected to that zone, so it was crazy.
Unpolished but very emotional sound to it. So it's almost like your grandmother singing something to you, like a nursery rhyme.
In the case of the Giants, they were like, okay, there's a specific thing going on there. We need for you to mess them up.
They made her 200 feet tall, so when you fight her, you're just looking up at her underwear.
So make sure you click subscribe so you'll know exactly when those episodes drop, and also go ahead and comment on this episode and let me know what you thought of the interview. Until the next episodes, thanks for watching.